Hello, hi, welcome back to a new book video. I hope you're all doing well. These are going to be all the books that I've read in 2024, all the way through from January to December. If I look a little bit red-faced, ignore that. I haven't done laundry and I've got a t-shirt on and stupidly realised that I'd spilt pot noodle down. This jumper it's very tight on me, so got a little bit of body dysmorphia going on, so please excuse that. I think I've gone a bit loopy. So, funny story, bookcase that you can see behind me, I recently painted green, it was white. As you can see, things like here, there's paint chips. But a lot of the books, apart from the ones that are stacked like this, and then the ones down here, a lot of the books are green on the bottom. It's not mold, it's green paint. I thought the bookcase was dry. It was to touch, but it wasn't actually dry. So I ruined about 60 odd books. Well, I didn't ruin them. They're all still readable. But no, let's get into this because I don't want to make this video like an hour long. Guys, I haven't recorded for so long. I'm currently on my break. It's the first day of December today. So I thought we'll start off December with a new video. Also, it is because I'm also trying to distract myself from reading this. So this will not be incorporated in the, although I will finish it before the end of the year, I'm not incorporating this book into the video because I'm just going to go by what I've read now. I probably will read this and then probably maybe one or two more books before January the 1st next year, but I just wanted to make this video. I've taken notes, so each book is going to be, I'm going to tell you the review that I gave it, and then if I was to rescore it, would I keep it the same or give it something different? I'll let you know when I read it, and then I'll give you a little summary. So, first up is Wranglestone. This was recommended to me by a friend. Gave it a 5 out of 5. It has a 3.53 average out of 5 on Goodreads. If I was to reread this, I'd give it a 4. Finish this on 18th of January. When I mentioned the 3 genres, by the way, there is many genres for each book, but I'm just going by just to make my life easier instead of having to go through every single category of genre of what each book is. I've picked the very first 3 categories on like the genres on Goodreads, so might be wrong, but like I said, just to be consistent, this is horror, LGBT, and YA. I really enjoyed this. I just want to point out as well that obviously throughout the year, my book maturity, in a sense of being able to kind of like easily read more mature kind of writing and content aimed at like older people, not like young adult stuff, it's kind of given me a better kind of concept on being able to kind of review things in a sense of, oh, that is very childish in a sense. When I first read it, it might not have been, so that's why some of the scores might change. But no, zombies, love. Okay, I'm being too slow, so I need to quicken up a bit. By Darren Charlton. Number 2, Signed, Sealed by Cynthia Murphy. When I'm kind of talking about the book, I'm going to look to the left because I'm reading my notes. I originally gave it a 5 out of 5. Goodreads is the average 3.87. I would still give it a 5 today if I was to reread it. Read this on the 27th of January, and it's advertised as a thriller young adult mystery. This was interesting. I'm trying to keep my videos PG now, guys, because if I say bad words, like on YouTube, my videos don't get pushed out. Suddenly a 5 out of 5. Goodreads average was a 3.66. I would now rate this a 4 instead of a 5. I read this on, bear in mind this year was a leap year, 29th of February. It's advertised as a mystery young adult thriller. Really enjoyed this. The only reason that I'm giving it a 4 now that I look back is like what I said earlier about the fact that, yes, this is a young adult book, but because I have, like, it's hard to explain. Because I've only been reading properly for the last year and a half, I'm so used to young adult books, and looking back, at the time I thought, oh yeah, this is definitely a 5 out of 5, only because I didn't know any different. But now that I've kind of matured my palate in a sense a little bit more, it's still a good book, it's just not as amazing as what I thought it was the first time around. Apart from one book, every single book that I'm going to be listing on this video, I've only read once. Oh, I forgot as well, I've got a little note section at the end where I give you all the stats and everything, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Timberdark. I forgot to, guys, suddenly a thingy, Lauren Munoz. There we go. Darren Charlton again. Charlton, I don't know. Sequel to Wranglestone is Timberdark. I gave this a 4 out of 5. Goodreads average was 4.32. I would now lower this to a 3 if I was to reread it. I finished this on March 9th. This is advertised as horror LGBT/queer. Sorry, I might just hide my face. It's so much easier though. Reason being that I'd give this a 3 now instead of a 4 out of 5 would simply be for the fact that obviously this whole video, forgot to mention, is not going to contain any spoilers. Like, there'll be no spoilers whatsoever. This obviously, I don't know how. We use the analogy of basically making a cup of tea. The first book is a cup of tea, and then the second book, you think, oh, because it's the same world, it's the same thing, you're getting another cup of tea, but it's slightly different. So like, first cup of tea might be like almond milk, and then you expect the second book to be a cup of tea. The main premise is tea, but then this time you might use brown sugar, you might use cashew milk or something. But this is coffee. This is tea. This is coffee. This is not this. Like the whole, if you've read it, you'll get what I'm trying to say. If you're reading a book about tea, you want to expect tea. The ending was not tea. It's as if the writer, I think he had a few too many when he decided to write the ending, because I literally have no words for what this ending was. The first book that made me cry on this list, I don't think any of the books made me cry. No, they did actually, I'll get back to that. So next up is Looking for Alaska by John Green. I gave this a 5 out of 5. Goodreads average was a 3.96. I'd still give this a 5. I read this on March 16th. This is advertised as young adult fiction and contemporary. First book that made me cry. I've read other John Green books before, The Fault in Our Stars. It's sad. Next up, one of my top, I don't want to say 3 right now because I don't actually have my top list of books. I didn't think. I've got a vague idea. If my friend is watching this, I want to apologise for the fact that they... So like I said, when I just want to emphasise on the fact that I've only been reading properly for the last year and a half. My friend before that brought me a few books over the years, and this next book was one of them. But when I lived at my parents' house, my bedroom suffered absolutely severely with damp and mould. I put the book down and then it got very mouldy and very damp and very ruined. Hello, editing Aaron, just jumping in real quick. When I say that I appreciate books more now, I just want to emphasise that I did appreciate them before. Now that I've started reading a lot more, value of books have become 10 times more like they were still valuable in the past is what I'm trying to say, but I still appreciated them then. The washing machine's on, so I'm sorry if you can hear that as well. Someone was to say to me, would you like this gold chain or like a fancy book? I'd pick the fancy book. I really love books now.
I just think they're neat.
Aristotle and Dante, Discover the Secrets of the Universe. 5 out of 5. Goodreads has an average of 4.3 out of 5. I'd still give this a 5 out of 5 today. I read this March 23rd, advertised as a young adult LGBT contemporary. I love this book. I just love Ari and Dante. Editing Aaron put it here. It's the sequel to that. I don't have it on me. My friend borrowed it off of me. It's weird when you look at like people's taste and everything because they really didn't like it and I did. I annoyingly didn't write the full title out. I can't remember. Like I said, I only read these books once. Aristotle and Dante dive into the waters of the world or something. I don't know. I gave it a 5 out of 5. Goodreads average was 4.13 out of 5, so it's a little bit lower than the first book. Now I'd give it a 4. I read that on April 7th. And it's advertised as romance, young adult, LGBT. The only reason that I'm lowering the score on this one to a 4 instead of a 5 is because now that I look back on it, where I've tried to not let other people's opinions kind of influence my own. When I think about the book, there was like, if you've read it, you know what I'm going to be talking about, but there was a big event that happens. Other than Looking for Alaska, it was the first time that I was like, oh, what the fudge. Not to spoil it, but there's like a weird relationship with Ari, and I can't remember his dad's name, but his dad. In the second book, they kind of delve more into it. I don't talk about my private life online very often, but me and my dad have a very weird relationship. By reading this book, it kind of made me realise, because in the book, Ari realises that him and his father are a lot alike. Reading this book made me realise as well that me and my dad, although we've not had the great past 4 years, me and my dad are very similar as well. The ending, I thought, oh, the ending was amazing. But it kind of, I don't know. It's one of those books, second book came out, years and years after the first book. So I feel like this was one of those books where a sequel was only basically written because the first book did so well that they thought, oh, let's capitalize on the first book. I still enjoyed the second book, but if you was to ask me now, was a second book needed? Absolutely not. Next up, we've got an actual book again. What Kind of Mother? I rated this a 4 out of 5. Goodreads average was a 3.11. I would now rate it a 3.5 instead of 4. I read this on May 12th, and it's advertised as a horror fiction mystery. Around about this time, I was starting to grasp like what was worth a 5-star, because as you would have seen by the end of this video, I was very greedy with 5 stars. I think by rating this a 4 at first, I was basically saying to myself, I enjoyed this book, but it's like there's a lot of other books basically that I've read that are better. I also forgot, not to again spoil it, but I forgot that this was supposed to be a horror book. It took me to 3/4 way through the book to realise that it was part horror as well. I don't think I've been confused at a book ending before other than this. If I reread it again, I might understand it a little bit more, but yeah, that's that. Next up, I think is probably one of my favourites that I've ever read. Like, it's up there with Aristotle and Dante, and it's my first sci-fi book, The Darkness Outside Us. I just realised I've been completely forgetting to tell you the author's name again. For the 2 Aristotle and Dante books, guys, Benjamin Allaire Sayans. I'm really bad at names. It's them. I'm really bad at pronouncing names, and I don't want to be rude and butcher them. And then What Kind of Mother? Clay McLeod Chapman. Again, I forgot to mention I'm using a webcam. I do apologise for the video quality. I will get a camera when this starts making me money. Darkness Outside Us, written by Elliot Schurfer, by this person. I rated it a 5 out of 5. Goodreads average is a 4.32. It is still a 5. Weirdly, I didn't write the exact date in June that I read this. Advertised as a sci-fi LGBT young adult book. I love this book so much. There was a few twists in it that I really did not see coming, and the twist kind of helped develop the book 10 times more. There is a sequel to this. I just want to point out, in October, there was supposed to be the second book released. I booked time off of work so I could buy the book and I could read the book. The second book got pushed by, I think it was like a few weeks, so I basically took the week off of work for nothing. I still don't own the second book. I'm currently on a book ban. 80 odd unread books. My friend's laughing right now watching this. They've probably got about 2,000 or 3,000 potentially. This is one of my favourites so far of this year. Because of The Darkness Outside Us, I really enjoyed the sci-fi kind of space theme. The Gravity of Us, written by Phil Stamper. I rated this a 4 out of 5. Goodreads average is a 3.61. I would now rate this a 3.5 out of 4 instead. 3.5 out of 4? 3.5 out of 5. Read this on the 5th of June. This is advertised as LGBT romance young adult. I enjoyed this book for the sense that it was nice to read, like, partial spoiler alert. The Darkness Outside Us is set in space. This is not set in space. I wanted something where I could see like 2 different perspectives, so this is more of a sense of like what happens to the people on Earth, like relatives of people that go into space. I think this is more of a maturity kind of thing. The more that I was reading, the more that I realised that yes, it was good and I loved the different kind of aspect of, like I said, there was kind of like no wow factor. When I said that I've read every single book only once on this list apart from one, this is the book that's the exception, by Eric J. Brown. There's 2 books out. It's a series of 2 books. I'm hoping that there'll be 3. Technically, it was a 2023 read. I read this on December 11th. 5 out of 5. Goodreads average was a 4.23. This is still a 5. And then I reread this on June 19th. The Only Light Left Burning, which is the sequel, which will be the next book, came out around that time. Because I was going into the second book, I wanted to basically refresh my memory on everything. This was amazing. Not to compare books, because as I've said in the past, every single book is its own creation. If you gave me this, and then if you gave me this is what I wanted this to be. They're not exactly the same, but this has zombies. No. This has zombies, or T should I say, zombies, and then this is basically 2020, like what happened in 2020, but on a bigger scale. As I said, Oh, that's going to bug me so much. I'm so sorry. The video is going to be slightly different now. I really do apologise because when I edit this, it's going to drive me absolutely insane. Only Light Left Burning, again by Eric J. Brown. This was a 5 out of 5, a 4.18 average on Goodreads. This was still a 5. I read this on the 2nd of July. This is advertised as a romance LGBT young adult. Exactly the same as All That's Left in the World. This was needed. This is definitely a child's book. A 5 out of 5. Goodreads averages 4.2 out of 5. It's still a 5. I read this July 10th, and it's advertised as fantasy young adult fiction. Talking of series, I've made the error. Thought, right, if I'm reading books in a series, I'll read book 1, then I'll read like 4 or 5, not 4 or 5, maybe like 3 or 4 different books, then I'll read the next one in it, just so that I can prolong that series. But then the more that I had a different series, the more that I realised that I was reading too many books in between. Another start to a series. Edward Marston, On The Lusitania. Again, it's the... I rated this a 4 out of 5. Goodreads has it at a 3.73. It's still a 4. Read this on July 30th. It's advertised as a mystery, historical fiction, historical mystery. This is the start of all these different series out, so he's got a lot of books, but there's at least 8. This is the first book. This was unintentionally the start of a series because, thankfully, it's not ruined because of how I've stacked them here. Can you hear this? Can you probably hear my phone in the background as well? Oh, it's not actually that bad. I thought it'd be like full on ruined. I picked this one. I haven't read this one. I picked this one up first. Basically, the whole series is on the, and then it's a different boat, basically. It was cheap, so I accidentally picked up the 5th book. I read the first 2, we'll get to the second one in a bit, but I picked up the second one. This was where, so I went to, there's a bookstore called High Peak Bookstore in Buxton. I went there just so I could pick up the second book, and then like the first and second, and then weirdly, only a few weeks ago, my friend found 4th one in a charity shop and brought it because he knew that I got the books in the series. They brought me this, and this was perfect because I'd gone back to buy the first one, and then I'd gone back again recently to get, because I brought the last book, I brought Wolf Brother from there, so I thought, well, if I'm getting the sequels to that, I'll look out for this as well. So then I brought the 2nd and 3rd, so I got 1, 2, 3 and 5, and I'm like, I still need to go back at some point because I need to get the 4th book, although I've only read the first 2. But then my friend obviously found this, literally a quid. Obviously the title does say, by Edward Marston. It's a pen name. The original author is called Conrad Allen. They basically relaunched it for a new kind of generation, which has worked because, like I said, this book was copyrighted in 1999, so I think this book's been out for quite a long time, guys. It's another Michelle Paver book, so as we said, there's a trend, dark matter, a ghost story. I gave this a 5 out of 5. Goodreads, it's only, unfortunately, got a 3.96 out of 5. I disagree with that. It would be a 4.75 instead of a 5, though. I read this on the 2nd of August, and it is advertised as a horror fiction / historical fiction. Ignore the fact that it's kind of water damaged as well. I went on holiday with this. I think it's one of the first horror books that I read on this list. I very nearly got sunstroke because of this, because I got that engrossed in it. I just read and wasn't paying attention. I was in literally 38 degrees Celsius heat. We even ended up switching sunbeds. My friend Tracy ended up getting out the pool, and I just got out as well. I forgot that I put my book under my towel. I didn't get my towel because I thought I'll just air dry. Because we switched sunbeds, she'd sat against my towel and got my book soaked. The reason that I've dropped this from a 5 to a 4.75, although it's a horror book, it's more of an atmospheric kind of book, not like a gory kind of, but it's still a good book. Again, another book that I got from the High Peak Bookstore, Awakened, by James S. Murray and Darren Wearmouth. I believe James S. Murray, if you've ever watched the TV show Impractical Jokers, he was, or is, one of the people on there. I rate this a 4 out of 5. Goodreads averages a 3.65. Still a 4. I read this August 10th. It's advertised as a horror sci-fi / fiction. Great book. Ended up going back to High Peak Bookstore to get the sequel, because this is a trilogy. I haven't read the sequel yet. Again, this will probably be another book that I read next year. This would be an atmospheric book. This is your kind of, not Scream, but imagine like monsters and stuff. That's what I was expecting this to be. The Island by C.L. Taylor. I gave this a 2 out of 5. Goodreads averages a 3.58. Still give it a 2. Read this August 16th. Advertised as a YA thriller mystery. Gave this a 2 because I was enjoying it until it got to the end. And then the ending basically ruined it for me. I wanted to give it a 1 originally, but I thought, no. I'm the kind of person where I save my 10s for like... So if someone says like, how bad's the pain? I'll save my 10 for... Later on, you will see a 1. People have even said on the back, oh, I couldn't put it down. Kept me awake. Terrifyingly good. It wasn't scary. I could put it down. I feel like the author just literally got a 20 pack and just sat and wrote the ending off the face, basically. The ending ruined it. It was good until the end. I think it's the 3rd book to make me cry out of these books so far. Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This is a 5 out of 5. Goodreads average is a 3.99. Still a 5. Read it on August 21st. Advertised as a fiction fantasy audiobook. I don't know why. This is the only one that's been described as an audiobook, so I think maybe a lot of people have enjoyed it as an audiobook. I don't know. Love the book. Basic premise, obviously, like I said, no spoilers, but you'll see it on the book anyway. One library, infinite lives. I love the concept. I wish that there was a sequel. It reached my top 10 easily. Spirit Walker, sequel to Wolf Brother by Michelle Paver. I gave this a 5 out of 5. Goodreads averages a 4.29. It's still a 5. Read this August 29th. Advertised as fantasy young adult fiction. Definitely worth being a sequel. I love the fact that obviously Chronicles of Ancient Darkness is a series. I'm glad that she wrote this basically. So yeah. On the Mauretania by Edward Marston / Conrad Allen. This was a 4 out of 5. Goodreads average 3.81. Technically higher than the first one because the first one was 3.73. It's still a 4. Read this September 14th. Again, advertised as a mystery / historical fiction / historical mystery. I kind of like this more. I'd probably give this as I've wrote this down and said it would still be a 4. No, this would be more of a 4.25 because I read the first one and like I said, because the books so far are based in 1907, I struggle with the concept of reading something in the past because I'm more of a present / future kind of person. Because it's set in the past, the first one was a struggle to get used to, but because I got used to it, because I read the first one, I just kind of slipped into this one easier. Again, Michelle Paver. Thin Air, a ghost story. I rated it 5 out of 5. Goodreads average was a 3.81, which is lower than Dark Matter. It's not a sequel. Still a 5. I didn't write down when I read it in October, but I read it in October at some point. It's advertised as a horror, historical fiction, and fiction. I really enjoyed it, and there wasn't it's not the biggest book. It's only 220 odd pages long, so it's a nice quick read. Really enjoyed it. You know, as I said earlier, I booked a week off work. Well, this week I intended to try and do a 24-hour reading challenge where for 24 hours straight I read, and I read as much as I could. One of the books, in fact the first book, this next book is the only book that I originally gave a 1 star out of 5. And the author is Alison Rumfitt. 1 out of 5. Goodreads averaged 3.65. It would be a 2 now. I read this the 2nd of October. It's advertised horror queer fiction. I've only given this a 2 because, like I said, I'm saving my 10. Worst pain being... and then obviously in the sense of rating 1 out of 5, 1 being the worst. I'm saving my 1 for something that I literally do not finish. This is the only book that nearly made me... It's kind of got that shock value of we're going to write something so twisted, so disgusting, that there's even... The author literally breaks the fourth wall and says, you, the reader, not the character, go and take a minute, go and get a cup of tea or something. The next part, you're going to need the break, basically. I can't find it. I wish I'd listened. I didn't. I powered through. I thought, no, I'll be fine. I never want to read this again. It was actually, in a way, it wasn't actually badly written. It was kind of written pretty good. Again, within the 24-hour reading challenge, Wiz was Cloisters by Katie Hayes. I gave it a 4 out of 5. Goodreads averages 3.4. I would still give it a 4. Read this on the 3rd of October. Advertised as fiction, mystery, fantasy. So obviously, yes, this was the third. Brainwyrms was the second. Obviously, I read it over the midnight point. I think I was trying to read from 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. and I kind of gave up at, I think it was 2 a.m. because I was going to start reading Soul Eater, the third book in the Michelle Paver Chronicles of Ancient Darkness series, because I thought, I can read that in 7 hours. This was more like my first big kind of grown-up kind of book where they used kind of words that I wasn't used to reading. So because I wasn't used to it, it took me so long. I wouldn't say it was difficult to read, it's just that because I wasn't used to the writing style, it threw me off and took me longer. And it was quite a long book. It was like 400 something pages long. So no, I really enjoyed that. Basically Hunger Games ripoff. It's not Hunger Games ripoff. The Declaration by Gemma Malley. I actually didn't, I was shocked by this. This wasn't what I was expecting. When you see a book cover, you think you automatically well, this is a perfect example of don't judge a book by a cover. I gave it a 5 out of 5. Goodreads averages a 3.71. This would now be a 4.75 out of 5. I read this the 5th of October, so this was a couple of days after my 24-hour challenge fail. It's advertised as young adult dystopia sci-fi. A great combination, by the way. Looking back, again, no spoilers, but there's twists, and then there's a certain twist. I saw it coming. This is also, it is a trilogy. I've got the second book because my friend gave me this and then the second one. And then they've still got the third one, but I haven't read the second book again because, like I said, when I was saying earlier that I was trying to do the whole read 4 or 5 books in after a first part and then read the second part. This was in October. I did plan on reading the sequel, but we came to Halloween. I'll get to that in a minute. Another book in this series. So as I mentioned earlier, that bookstore, the High Peak bookstore, this was a book that I did not realise was part of a series, and it's a very long series. The Windermere Witness by Rebecca Tope. The Windermere Witness. I rated it a 4 out of 5. Goodreads averages a 3.42. I'd still rate it a 4. I read this 12th of October. Advertised as a mystery fiction crime. I went and brought too many crime books. I thought that I was loving crime, and I thought that crime, because I'm still trying to find my favourite genre, and I'm just trying to go through all the different styles of books. I don't feel like I've been reading long enough to say, horror is my favourite book genre. I'm really enjoying horror at the minute, but I was enjoying crime so much that I went and when I said that I've got 80, 90 books to read, and then I went out and brought about 20 crime books as well. So I've got so many crime books to read, and I'm getting bored of crime. Brought this only simply for the fact that it's based in Windermere. As a child, my grandparents used to own timeshare Last Off. But as a child, we used to go to the Lake District every single year as our holiday. We'd always go to Windermere. Well, we went to Patterdale, and we went to Bowness on Windermere. And then we stopped because my granddad died. I don't know why I'm laughing. So I probably don't cry. I think I enjoyed it more for the fact that although people's names are fake, they sometimes use real locations. There's parts of partial fake places within towns, but then there's some real places as well. And I'm reading it I've been there. So because it's relatable, I think I enjoyed it more. So these next few books are from the Halloween video that I made. I don't have those books anymore. They was on Lend. In A Cornfield. I rated it a 4 out of 5. Goodreads averages a 3.74. It would now be a 4 instead of a 5. I read that October 27th, and it's advertised as a horror young adult thriller. I dropped a mark only because, as I mentioned with Dark Matter, I was expecting one kind of horror, and it was a different horror. In A Cornfield. That's my granddad looking down at me shouting at me for laughing. Because, look, I'm bending down to the floor. The book that fell on the floor, A Windermere Witness. My granddad just told me off, guys. I was expecting one kind of horror in the sense of it was going to be atmospheric. Because you think clown in a cornfield, you think quite literally clown in a cornfield. It completely went a different way. So, yeah, 4 out of 5. Next up, The Hollow Places. I rated it a 5 out of 5. Goodreads averages a 3.8. It's still a 5. I read this October 29th. It's advertised as horror fantasy fiction. Just want to point out that 3 combo genre is probably my favourite so far. This was one of definitely my favourite books of 2024. It had the atmosphere. It had the gore. Again, try not to get my video kind of shunned into the void. When you think of horror, I think of Scream. I think of that kind of concept, but The Hollow Place has completely changed the way that I thought about horror. I don't know, without spoiling it, it kind of brought the whole aspect of physics and atoms and that kind of stuff and what can happen. It basically made me completely reimagine the concept of how horror could be. Next up, we're getting to the bottom of the list nearly, The Willows. I rated a 5 out of 5. Goodreads averages a 4.06. I would still give it a 5 today. Read this on October 29th as well as The Holy Places. This one's advertised as horror fiction / short stories because it is a short story written by this person here. And I just want to point out, Hollow Places was basically a concept design from this. This was the concept, this was the original idea, and this kind of went with that idea. I really enjoyed it. I did struggle because, as I said, I read this on October 29th. I still had a full book to read after this. The video was supposed to go live, well it did. The video went live October 31st, Halloween, and I had to skip some parts of the edit because I needed to get the video out in time. And then the last one, not on this thing, but the second to last one of this year, the last one for the Halloween series, Lonely Broadcast, book 1, I gave it a 5 out of 5. Goodreads averages a 4.04. I would still give it a 5. I read this on October 31st, so the last book for the Halloween video, advertised as a horror fiction mystery. This was also written by this person here. I'm waiting for the second book. I technically, although my friend borrowed this me and she picked it for me, I had seen this book advertised on Instagram and I'd added it to my to be read list on Goodreads, and then when my friend suggested it, I was like, oh, okay. Last but not least, I read a pretty book, guys. I say that they're pretty books because they're different. They've got like fancy paper edging and they've got like nice artwork on the inside. We're gonna say this is the last one. We've got there, guys. It's only taken me an hour and 20 minutes. This is, again, like Hollow Places, where the original story was The Willows. This, let me just actually tell you the stuff first. So, I gave this a 5 out of 5. Goodreads has only averaged it at a 3.81. I disagree with that. It's still a 5. I read this November 16th. This is advertised as a fantasy retelling and fiction. You've got the Brother Grimm fairy tale stories and stuff. Thankfully, this one isn't paint damage because I have obviously my stack of books behind me and I kind of like have I show it off standing up. This is Hansel and Gretel, basically, but grown up. Instead of Hansel and Gretel, it's Hans and Gretel. I love this book. This is probably one of my top 10 books of this year. We're going to go through some stats, so if any of you nerds out there like me, I wrote kind of like a little thing. Total books that I've read this year is 30 books. I'll put a screenshot on edit. I beat my Goodreads target by 500%. When I first started reading last year, I only read about 4 books from June to December. Set my target for 2024 as 6 books, because then that gives me 2 months per book. But I've read 30. My top rating, the most books with the top rating, 19 out of 30 books had a 5-star review from 2024. So you know when I said that I was being greedy with the 5-star? Only 1 book out of 30 got a 1-star, and that was Brainwyrms. Like I said, I've changed it now, but originally I've changed the ratings on 10 books. The top Goodread rated book was a 4.32 out of 5, which was The Darkness Outside Us. The lowest Goodread rating book that I read was a 3.11, which was What Kind of Mother. Very first 3 categories on Goodreads is obviously what I categorize each book as. I went through and I literally wrote down every single genre and then tallied up how many times I'd read that genre so I could come up with the top 5 genres of books that I read this year. Young adult, fiction, mystery, LGBT. Genre that I really actually liked was fiction, horror, mystery. A genre that took me by surprise was sci-fi. Like I said, Darkness Outside Us. Realised that I really do want to read more sci-fi books, so that's a plan. I kind of gave myself like a hope for 2025, sorry. So I've put, don't add unnecessary pressure to force myself to read more. 2025, I just want to read, basically. Instead of trying to force myself to do these like videos of like reading 3 books of this, but in a time frame, I want to say, if I want to do a video of like reading top 3 sad books or something, instead of saying like in a month, just read, make that video, instead of putting unnecessary pressure on myself, where then I kind of go into a book slump. Just don't put pressure on myself. I want to read a book that's over 1,000 pages long. Obviously, A Little Life has 720, but I want to read a book that's got 4 digits in it. I'm pretty sure some Stephen King books have over 1,000 books. That's going to be another video, by the way, guys, for next year. I've never read a Stephen King book. I know that he's written It, The Shining, and things like that. I want to read a book that I don't like the sound of, because as I mentioned earlier about judging a book by a cover, I think it was Declaration. If I picked that up in a shop, I would have probably put, like, if I didn't read it, if I just looked at the cover, I'd have been like, yeah, no, I don't like the look of that. I want to go into a bookstore and just pick up a random book, and if I think, oh, I don't like the cover of that, I want to buy it and read it. We're going to try and transition from a gaming channel to a book channel. Well, I don't know, just a bit of everything channel, but more book content. I hope you enjoyed the books that I read this year. I just realised that I forgot to mention my favourite books so far, so I think I'm not going to dig through the pile of books on my bed, put all the books on screen of my favourite, but from the top of my head, Hollow Places, Aristotle and Dante, the first one, Darkness Outside Us, I think they're my favourite books for this year. Hopefully I'll read some really good ones again next year. Let me know of any books similar to these in the comments below, if you like, give me some recommendations basically. I hope you guys find some books that you'll have never heard of and you might enjoy them as well. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and I will see you next time. Bye!